Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. From the right, I'm Gary Polland.
And on the left, I'm David Jones.
Very good, David. Tonight, we welcome the candidates for City Controller of the City of Houston, City Councilwoman Pam Holm from District G, City Councilman M.J. Kahn from District F, and Ron Green, City Councilman at Large. Welcome to y'all.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. So, Pam, this City Controller's job, tell us what experience you have that recommends you for the job, and tell us whether or not fiscal management of a large organization is part of the qualifications that you think should be in the job description. How's that?
That's good. It opens it up to really discuss what the controller really is, because I think that so often the citizens of Houston don't realize what an important job that is. And it is providing the fiscal leadership, and it is overseeing and monitoring the spending, all of the expenditures of the city. As controller, one of the reasons that I think it is so important at this time is because we do need to be conscientiously monitoring all of our expenditures, looking for those long-term projections of where the revenue is coming from. Transparency is one of the key things that the controller is actually supposed to be doing, because, you know, there are only 5 large cities that elect a controller: New York, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Houston. So the controller is that independent, strong voice that's really just accountable to people. And so it's bringing transparency, sharing the records, which we plan to do immediately, so that people can see how their money's being spent.
And before MJ and Ron get to talk, just address whether or not you think it's important that someone have in their background accounting and fiscal management of a large organization.
I think it is much of an operating job, and being on council and participating as much as I have in the last 6 years, you absolutely have to have the knowledge of the budget, reading budgets, know where the numbers are, and be able to provide the information more than anything to those policymakers that are doing it. You know, I'm not one of the MBA boys. And
we have MBA boys.
And actually, congratulations to Ron, who just received his. But the experience and the knowledge is absolutely there. It doesn't take an attorney. It doesn't take...
Oh, I know that. Go ahead, Mr. M.J. Kahn. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm so honored to be with my 2 colleagues. I respect them, and I'm honored that they are part of this process. This position, unlike any other elected office, is where qualifications is utmost important, because this is the position where you are dealing with investment bankers, you're dealing with bond issuers, you're dealing with banks, you're dealing with people who are going to have issues as far as fiscal areas are concerned. That's what I bring to the table. My strength in this race is my qualification, my experience, my background in the areas of fiscal management, fiscal responsibility. Not just having an MBA degree from Rice, which I'm very proud of, but also I have worked with large corporations, I have owned businesses, managed budget, made payrolls. I understand how to deal with investment bankers, how to deal with budgets, how to make decisions so that we have a very tight fiscal management of our affairs. City of Houston Controller is more like a CFO of a multinational corporation, with the exception that controller has more independent than its CFO as general, so it is even more important in that sense. And that's what I bring to the table. One of my very first budget amendment back in 2004 was to require city departments to produce zero-based budgeting. You have to understand, you have to know these things, you have to know what it means, you have to know how it affects the process and the fiscal affairs of the city in order to deal with them. Of course, controller also has an independent office. Controller writes all the checks. Controller is also a watchdog for taxpayers' money.
Now, that's a good phrase. We'll get back to that one. Ron, you're the lawyer, and
I'm a lawyer and an MBA boy.
And they're suggesting lawyers aren't qualified, so you have something else to do.
Well, certainly. The qualifications are going to be key in this race. I think we all have the same amount of political experience. We call ourselves classmates. We were elected in 2003 along with the mayor. But I think what sets us apart is where have we been in the last 6 years? I've chaired budget and fiscal affairs. I've helped the mayor create the budget that we get to vote on and that we get to make amendments to, and so that individuals can put forth the amendment to put out zero-based budgeting. A lot of people don't realize that the City of Houston's Controller's Office is a city department. In addition to being the watchdog over city finances for the electorate, you are the person who services vendors. You are the person who has 75 employees, and you also have 6 different divisions. And from day one, you have to be able to do all of this at the same time. You have to be able to manage an audit division, a treasury division, an executive division, an operations division, all of those things that help the city run smoothly. And while you have a new mayor that's coming in and potentially maybe even 6 new council members, you need someone from day one who can step in and does not go into the office learning how to fly and build the airplane at the same time. And I think experience really does do that. As a lawyer, I have the advocacy skills to do it. As a person with an MBA who has finance background. And I was chairman of Budget and Fiscal Affairs way before I got my MBA. That's just the icing on my cake.
I wonder if that counted, David, as partial credit for getting an MBA as chairing the committee. MJ, I'm going to ask a question, of course, and I'm going to ask your colleagues the same one. Bill King said in a recent article in the Houston Chronicle that Houston is headed to a fiscal crisis, says we could be down in city revenue $30 to $40 million in the next fiscal year. I want to know what type of budget constraints you would like to use if you're in the position as controller to help get control of the city budget in this tough times we face.
Well, I mean, it is not just the city of Houston. There is a horrible global economic crisis, which nobody anticipated until a year ago. And now City of Houston is seeing that crisis more and more, which we were immune to before compared to other cities. And that's why we need somebody who gets in the controller's office and really put an emphasis on saving money. So one of the things I would do right off the bat is require city departments to have a very process re-engineering. That's one of my budget amendment, which was this year, that I asked the department to do process re-engineering. We need to make sure that our resources are used efficiently and in the best manner. So it is not just fiscal audits we have to do, which is always helpful, but also the process audits, which I think we need to do more and more to make sure that if there are any areas, which I believe there are, any areas where we can save some money and we provide the services in a more efficient manner, that is the starting point where we can save some money for the taxpayers. Besides that, I think a very tight oversight on the way revenues are being generated, on spending is being done, working with the council, working with the mayor, and coming together to really lead the city in these tough economic times.
Should the city raise taxes to make up for the shortfall?
I am proud of lowering taxes in my 6 years in the city council. 5 of the 6 years we reduced the tax rates. I was proponent. Many times I was the one who proposed that amendment to the budget, and I'm very proud of it. I don't think that we need to raise taxes. I think we need to manage our finances better and reduce waste in the city by doing some process re-engineering and other thing which private sector does all the time, which it's about time City of Houston does too.
Ron?
We absolutely need to do some things. From day one, what a lot of people don't know is that the City Controller's Office is our Chief Investment Officer. We've got a $2 billion investment portfolio and a $12 billion debt portfolio. There are some opportunities to refinance some debt and to reallocate those funds. Also, what we need to do is look at some of the low-hanging fruit, such as a lot of the contracts that we have out here. There's been a lot of concentration on performance audits, and that tells us what we're doing well internally. But we've got compliance audits, and we've got revenue enhancement audits that we need to do. And that shows us where we're spending our money, making sure that we're following the law of a contract, making sure the revenues match up with the expenditures. Those are some things that we need to do. We've got a lot of long-term 30-year contracts that are out there, like in solid waste, and right now I'm working on some of those contracts now to renegotiate those, get better rates based on what the current economic situation is.
So you think we can save $30 to $40 million in the shortfall without having to resort to a tax increase?
The tax increase I don't think is on the table right now. I think we need to do other things first.
Good. Pam? How do you deal with the budget crisis that's coming?
Well, and I think, the first thing is, just backing up just a few weeks, the first thing you do is you don't adopt a budget that has more expenditures than it does projected revenue coming in. But
that sounds like deficit.
It is deficit. We adopted a budget that calls for issuing $20 million of pension obligation bonds, which we're going to call revenue. It means, we'll use it for our revenue stream, for recurring operations. We've projected $51 million today out of the reserve fund to use for recurring operating costs. And then there's still $10, $15 million that we haven't identified the savings on yet. I think January 1, 2010 is going to be critical that we have someone in the controller's office that has really been there full time and understands it. And the fact is, let's just get back to these qualifications. The charter says this is an elected position that is accountable to one group of people, and that's the citizens of Houston, the voters that elect you. If we need the best CFO, if we need a good CPA, which Kathy Whitmire was the last CPA, and there have been no, then we ought to take it out of the charter and we ought to hire the best we can find rather than run on the platform that you are the best.
And you voted against the mayor's budget.
I voted against the budget.
And the two of you
absolutely
voted
did.
for the mayor's budget. So then we could say that Pam, if there is this shortfall that's approaching, she's the watchdog and you guys are mayor supporters.
Well, and I've been as chair of the pension committee. We're not even talking about some other things. We've got pension committee deficits and liabilities that we haven't even begun to discuss.
Unfunded pension liabilities?
Unfunded liabilities. And that's just the projection now. Wait, I'm projecting 30 to 45 days, and there is going to be a shock of what our contribution level is going to have to be because of the amount of money and because of the shortfall in the market and the economic situation now. I've been on the budget committee the entire time. I've watched it. I even attend all the committees.
So Bill King may be underestimating the shortfall in the next fiscal year.
I think Bill King's numbers are really accurate at this point. I think it's hard to estimate until the new numbers start coming in. We're still rolling on numbers at the fiscal year end of June 2009. We're now into, we just finished the 2008, last June. We just finished fiscal year 2009, and those numbers, we'll really see them in this fall at the end of December. But those numbers are going to be dramatically
Pam Holm is going against the current view, the consensus view of Bill White as a fiscal, conservative, prudent manager of city resources. MJ and Ron, I mean, she's going against the grain here.
I mean, I was part of these last 6 years when Bill White was mayor, and I can say that I'm proud of that record. I'm proud the way city was managed for last 5.5 years now, and I think that we did reduce the property tax rate. We did increase the revenues. We did streamline the services. We did provide the service in a more efficient manner during Bill White. So I'm not going to take shots at Bill White just because we are getting out of office.
Are you saying that Pam took shots at Bill White simply because she's running for office?
Well, what I'm saying is that the new year, the next mayor, and the next council and next controller are going to face challenges which were not there for the last 6 years, because of whatever the economic crisis we are facing.
But I will tell you, none of them are there because they've been transferred there.
Yeah, and we need to focus as to how to manage it in the tough economic times, and not focus on what happened last 6 years, because I think I'm proud of that record, and I'm sure all the council members who've served for
Let's
last
see if Ron wants to compete for Bill White's vote.
Well, let me tell you, I'm very proud of the fact of the work that we've all done on the city council for the last 6 years, and I tell you, I didn't wait until I started to run for controller to start being the watchdog of city finances. I represented this entire city for the last 6 years. Right now, you can't look at the budget and say, I decided to vote no this year, but you were with us all for the last 5 years, or 4 years. 4 years, 4 out of 5 years. But at the end of the story, but at the end of the day, we do have some serious pension liabilities. And my colleague over here, Councilmember Holm, is the chair of that pension committee, and the pension is no better off now than it was when she took over the committee. What you need from day one, and the council member mentions that you need someone who's full time, and I don't know if that's a shot at our credentials, but I will tell you this: whatever I do, I take it to the next level. And you don't hire a city controller, but you absolutely get what you elect. And if you elect someone who has allegedly had no career or had a career, you get that. If you elect someone with finance background, with law background, and whatever the case may be, that is what you get. And you cannot pick and choose parts of the job that you want to do. You cannot follow a script and say, we spent too many pennies on pencils last year. You've got to be able to lead finance professionals. It is a finance department. department, you need to be able to do it from day one. You need to sit down with auditors. You need to sit down with bankers. You need to sit down with people who do who run these departments, with technical services people, and that's where your experience comes in. The citizens of Houston don't deserve someone with minimum qualifications to run a finance department.
All right, let's talk about what appears to be a rogue operation running out of the airports department of the city of Houston. Apparently we have a private deal part of this that I don't know whether city council has approved or not. We're running airports in Costa Rica and God knows where else. I don't know whether the funds are accountable to the city council and the city council deals with it, or this is a private slush fund for the managers of the airport. What is going on there?
That is a very good question, and I think that you need a good controller to come in and help do those audits. It is set up as a separate corporation, but there is still liability to the city of Houston. Anything that a city council votes on, and the three of us here at this table did not vote on setting up this corporation, but we are responsible to people. We are responsible for this, and what I believe is that once the investigation is done, we need to bring it in. If we need to bring it in under our control, that's what we need to do, because it's still taxpayer money, and so whether it's treated as a slush fund, that's one thing. But I'm a proponent of having enterprise funds that can generate income for the city of Houston, but it has to be generated income for the people of Houston and not just for the people who run those corporations.
So, Pam, do you know who approved this private operation? And again, I'm okay. I agree with the councilman. I think it's okay to have enterprise funds, and the city can make money if it has an expertise.
But this is an enterprise fund, and this isn't. I mean, what we're talking about is a corporation that was set up, and it was set up with council approval.
Okay.
There was an issue that came up, I think, and I have to go back because I'm not sure when it was, but it was 2005, I think, around 2005 that we discussed this. Yeah. And at that time, and I admit that I did vote on it, but there were a lot of questions raised, because why would we use the experts and our highest qualified people serving and working at our airport system to go off onto the wild blue yonder and to set up other airports?
Well, unless the city makes money from it.
And that was the resolution that came out, is by sharing our expertise, what we would generate with people that would be traveling and sending people through our airport system, it would be beneficial to us.
So why are we told that could adversely affect the city of Houston's bond rating?
Well, I think the question is the corporation related to the city? And I think the findings that Mr. Coleman has put out some papers on and is still investigating, but it's his opinion that it will not affect the bonds ratings of the city, that it's apart from that.
So, MJ, you think the city needs to get better control of that?
We have to be very careful, because we don't want to jeopardize City of Houston standing with the bond holders, okay? Whatever we know today, there is no danger of city's bond rating being affected because of what HASDC does or has done. There is no indication of that. Our legal department has gone through the process in minute detail to make sure that there is City of Houston liability is protected, there is a buffer. Yes, we did approve the contract for HASDC. We did not set up HASDC as a private organization. Those private people did that. We have our manager of our airport, director of our airport system, serves as a board member, as an ex-officio member. But the board is independent. And we have never gotten involved in any of the contract they have signed with either Quito or Canada or any place around the world. Yes, we all have issue. I have issue with HASDC. And my issues are, I want to make sure there is no conflict of interest in any of the city personnel who are, helping with HASDC's work all over, which we are getting revenues for. But I want to make sure there is no conflict, either directly or indirectly. So that is one of the things I'm asking. I've asked our airport system. I also asked Anthony Hall, who is overseeing on behalf of the mayor, and that's what I'm asking the city legal department, because we want to make sure that it is transparent, it is independent, and there is absolutely no conflict of interest between what they do and no liability at all.
Look, if it's a good service, the city ought to sell more of it. If it doesn't adversely affect performance of the city airports and brings in more revenue, maybe they'll close the revenue gap.
How would we close
Fine
this?
balance.
By the way, how would we, brief answer if you could, where would be a source of revenue? Because we talked about projected losses of revenues. And Gary only thinks about cutting things, of course. But what about finding new sources of revenue if we're in a crisis next year? Where would we look?
There are a lot of areas. So one area which was discussed in the council yesterday, and this is, by the way, I asked the city to start reporting it, is you all talk about unfunded pension liability. we have a huge, even a bigger unfunded liability for retirees' health benefits. Okay, that's a $323 billion liability, and I asked for it to be reported because it was never reported before. Because if nothing else, at least for transparency, we need that. Now, what is the low-hanging fruit in there? Our retirees, after you retire from the city, if you remarry, okay, and you have family members, because of this new marriage, currently our system is that all of them are covered with our health benefits. And I think that's something we need to look at. Do we owe to the retiree and their future family members?
You're saying that after people retire, they get benefit? That's
they get remarried, and
do y'all agree?
So what I'm saying is there are areas, there are many areas like that. And I mention again, I think every city department, every city section can benefit from process re-engineering and bring some efficiency into the system to serve the citizens.
But this is all, it doesn't do any good to talk about let's do this little bit and this little bit. You've got to look at these issues comprehensively. The first thing is we are in, especially with the municipal employees, we're in a meet and confer agreement, whether we like it or not, that ends. And we have to be prepared to be at the legislature January 1, 2011, hopefully hand in hand with the system administrators that are willing to address it for comprehensive changes. We still have a defined benefit plan. We need to be looking at we need to look at the goal is to provide fair and equitable retirement system for our employees. They need it, they deserve it, and the citizens of Houston want them to have it. But I don't think any one of us can sit and say, well, you've got to cut this and you've got to cut that. There's a lot of bad things that need to be addressed.
If we're not careful, we could wake up and find out we're California, right?
No, absolutely.
And we may find that out to some degree because,
that's pretty
the other
scary.
thing, it can be frightening. And, this isn't the time to start bringing the shades down because we have a great city and we are going to be on the mend. And we are going to be the reports today said there are only 2 states, and really it's Washington, D.C. and Texas that are going to rebound by 2011 and really not have much impact from this in the long term. And more quickly recover. But we've got a combined utility system. That's our wastewater system. The last 2 months, the expenditures were $7 million over projected for April and for May. We don't know what June was. In May, our expenses were $2.5 million more. We had a 5% increase in April of your water bill because that's how we fund it. It doesn't even touch the bond indebtedness that we owe. That's jumping to $42 million. This is all, you can't, as much as we all want to play really nice, pretty games, it's time to face reality and make some tough decisions.
And the tough decision for us is when we talk about politics, and that's now, Ron, these 2 people, MJ and Pam, raised a lot of money.
Right.
You were way behind in that money, but your consultant says doesn't matter. It's 62% Democratic city. He's in the runoff. Is that what you're looking forward to?
Well, that has a part to do with it. Yes, we have to raise some money, but look at it. Ronald Green's been the only person sitting at this table that's been elected 3 times citywide. Look at where the money comes from. What you have to do is look at the zip codes where the money comes from. You have to look at what sector of the community that the money comes from, and that will determine who is behind a campaign. I'm proud to say that I've gotten money from City of Houston employees, everyday working people who are not trying to repay me for any votes that I've done on City Council, not trying to repay me for providing pocket parks for friends or for closing off streets for people. I'm glad of that fact. And I think what you will see is that at the end of the day, Ronald Green does not need as much money to go out and let people know that your district existed. I have 2 people who represented small districts and just now are starting to take an interest in the other 8 districts in this city.
And you didn't say that they were both Republicans yet either.
And but you know what, though? It's a nonpartisan race, but I'll tell you, the demographics are what they are. But I don't pick and choose who I represent based on their politics.
Okay, demographic people, what do you have to say to that?
I love working for the City of Houston because it is nonpartisan. And I am very fiscally conservative. And while I know exactly who I was elected to represent, I also was elected to represent the City of Houston, and I have not failed to do so at any point in time.
Okay, and in 10 seconds, how do you win? How do you win this race? Your plan?
My plan is to let people know how important the Comptroller's office is, that they have somebody that knows what's going on, that will make them, provide them the information. Remember, the Comptroller's not a policymaker. You don't get to vote on a budget. All you do is oversee it and make sure that the people know. But the other thing is I get out there, no one outworks Pam Holm.
And you've been successful in fundraising so far.
I have a huge constituency of people that
This
believe
gentleman
in
has
me.
the cash on hand, though, right?
Yes.
What are you going to do with all that money?
We're going to get our message out to the voters. Look, one of the things is that my fundraising is coming from my friends. It's not coming from people who have any direct interest in the city so far. I hope they get to realize that I'm the best candidate. They will support me. By the way, there's not going to be a runoff. With due respect, I'm going to win it outright. Because if you look at my campaign, 6 years ago, everybody wrote me off. You remember that.
I didn't write you off, but I do have to cut you off.
Because
we don't have any more time. Thanks, Ron Green, MJ
Thank
Kahn,
you all.
and Pam Holm. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
And y'all can view a follow-up discussion of tonight's show by going to HoustonPBS.org, where you can find out more about red, white, and blue. So check that out. And until next time, get informed and get active.